over the edge of a sudden 4,000-mile-high cliff into the center of the planet. But gradually, I did turn in a more student-like manner to the scientific meaning behind the drawing and the realization that the Earth consisted of separate layers, ending in the center with a glowing sphere of iron and nickel, which was as hot as the surface of the sun, according to the caption. And I remember thinking with real wonder, how do they know that? I grew up convinced that science was extremely dull, but suspecting that it needn't be. It's a miracle. I didn't doubt the correctness of the information for an instant. I still tend to trust what scientists say, in the same way I trust surgeons and plumbers. But I couldn't for the life of me conceive how any human mind could work out what spaces thousands of miles below us, which no eye had ever seen and no X-ray could penetrate, could look like and be made of. To me, that was just a miracle. How and why? Excited, I took the book home that night and opened it before dinner, an action that I expect prompted my mother to feel my forehead and ask if I was all right, and, starting with the first page, I began to read. And here's the thing, it wasn't exciting at all. Above all, it didn't answer any of the questions that the illustration stirred up, such as, how did we end up with the sun in the middle of our planet, and how do they know how hot it is? And if it is burning away down there, why isn't the ground under our feet hot to touch? And why isn't the rest of the interior melting? Or is it? And when the core at last burns itself out, will some of the earth slump into the void, leaving a giant sinkhole on the surface? Who's got the answers? The author was strangely silent on such details. It was as if he wanted to keep the good stuff secret by making all of it totally unfathomable. Then, much later, about 10 years ago, I was on a long flight across the Pacific, staring idly out of the window, when it occurred to me that I didn't know the first thing about the only planet I was ever going to live on. I also didn't know what a proton was, or a protein, how to tell a quark from a quasar, how geologists could look at a layer of rock in a canyon and tell you how old it was, how much the Earth weighs, or how old its rocks are, or what really exists in the center, how and when the universe started and what it was like when it did, what goes on inside an atom, why scientists still can't predict an earthquake or even the weather. I am very pleased to tell you that until the late 1970s, scientists didn't know the answers to these questions either. They just didn't let on that they didn't. Cooking up a universe. So, where did we come from and how did we get started? Well, when things really got going, it was all down to atoms, those minuscule particles of matter that make up everything there is. But for a long time, there were no atoms and no universe for them to float about in. There was nothing at all anywhere, except for something unimaginably small, which scientists call a singularity. As it happened, this was enough. Get ready for a really big bang. Naturally, you'll wish to retire to a safe place to observe the spectacle. Unfortunately, there's nowhere to retire to because surrounding your tiny, tiny mixture of ingredients, there's nowhere. It's natural to want to think of whatever started us as a kind of dot hanging in the dark, limitless space that surrounds it. But right now, there is no space, and there is no darkness. Our universe will begin from nothing.